you work all day, but you can't get anything done because you allow too many things that don't matter to distract you. Sometimes you have to let fires burn. And so what that means is that you have to block time for work that moves the ball forward, because a month later, it'll be the only thing you have to show for the month before. And so one of the things that took me a long time to realize is that there are very few things that are existential crisis within hours, even within minutes, right? And so the idea that everyone in the company and all of your customers, et cetera, can have immediate demand from you or responses from you as the owner is not a good expectation, because then it means that you're on demand for everyone else's needs, but the business needs you. And so I'll give you a story to drive this home. So at my first gym, I had just started sleeping not at my gym, which was wonderful for me. And so right as I get my first few nights of sleep, I get a call that everybody hates at 5:30 in the morning, because that's when sessions happen. And I was like, hello, what's going on? And he said, I've got bad news. And I immediately go to, someone died from a heart attack in our gym. That was immediately went there. And I'm just silent. And I was like, what is it? And then he says, there's a water pipe that broke and it's leaking on the floor. And I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? He's like, well, I don't know what to do. So I called you. And I said, well, what do you think I'm going to do? He's like, I guess call a plumber. And I was like, okay, what would I do in the meantime? He's like, probably get a bucket. I was like, yeah. I was like, have you done that? He was like, well, no, I called you. I was like, okay, well, why don't you do those first two things? Because there's nothing I can do. There's a story of Eleanor Roosevelt, I think, when I think someone in her family died in the middle of the night. She gets woken up by her servant or whatever, however they did it back then. And he says, Mrs. Roosevelt, I have some terrible news. And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, what is it? He's like, your cousin, John died. And she said, that could have waited till morning. There's nothing I can do about it. And so there's very few things that will actually kill a business. And so if you allow everything to be urgent, it means that everything's a priority, which means nothing is. And priorities literally mean prior. They come first. And I literally prioritize my day by the things that matter most. And so I start my day, I do prior to my day the thing that I think will actually move the ball forward. Because when I look back at my last month to see the progress that I've made, I never think about, Susan, who I had to give a refund to because she was dissatisfied for something, or we got a 1-star review and we need to, deal with that. Or, our chat support went down for, 2 hours in the middle of the day. And people were like, why did the chat support? None of these things are existential crises for the business in the short term. There's almost nothing that kills a business in the short term. And the only real thing is that your payment processing goes down. So your ability to accept money goes away. But beyond that, there's not a lot of stuff. And so what you have to get comfortable with is letting some fires burn and being able to say, yes, this sucks, but not getting the important work done will suck more. And so I spend, and I still do this, the first 4 to 6 hours of my day working on the things that I believe matter most. And I think that if I had a single habit that has gotten me the furthest in my life, it's that I work uninterrupted for the first 4 to 6 hours of my day on the things that I think have the highest leverage in the business. And I like to think about that as, what's the one thing that if it were true, all of my other problems would go away? And then I put all of my effort into making that one thing true or making that one thing happen. But that can't happen if you have 20 other mini priorities that are urgent and not important. Every entrepreneur suffers from this. And so you have to draw lines in the sand or you will be spread too thin. You will work all day and you will get nothing done. To protect that first 4 to 6 hours, in the beginning, I had to wake up early. So that meant I woke up at 4, I worked for 6 hours until 10, and I start my day at 10. As I made a little bit more money, I was able to sleep in until 5, or, and then start working at 6, and then I'd work from 6 to noon. And so everybody on my team, and this has been for years, everyone on my team uses nothing until the afternoon. Alex only takes meetings in the afternoon. And so for me, I do my thinking work in the morning, and then I do my meetings in the afternoon. As I hired more people, more directors, more leaders, more executives, a lot of those meetings also were able to disappear. And so now it just became I have a meetings day, and the remainder of my week is just completely open. Here, let me show you how this plays out in the real world. Someone reaches out and says, hey, I got to connect you with Jimmy. I think you guys would have a lot of synergies. I think that this would be a really important connection. And I say, I take meetings on Mondays. And they're like, oh, I don't think he can do that. And I say, okay, I guess we won't meet. We just sit there and that's it. And you'll be amazed oftentimes that if they really want to meet you, they'll make it work on Mondays. And if it means that it's also 3 Mondays from now, then it's 3 Mondays from now. And I will say this, if I don't meet Jimmy, you know how many people are there on earth? There's 8 billion people. I'm not going to meet most people. And the likelihood that Jimmy's going to actually do something, because like if I know what I need to do to grow my business, there's not a lot that Jimmy's going to offer me there. Like if I'm very clear on my strategy and I'm very clear on my execution, anything that's not that fundamentally loses me money. It certainly doesn't make me money. And so just being okay with saying no. And so I'll give you the tactic around this, which is just saying, I like to say, so this is how I do this in social settings. I would say, hey, I'm actually not taking meetings until after my book launches. And then once my book launches, I'll say, I'm not taking meetings until we sell this company. And I'll just always have something that I'll just push out that's way far in advance that seems very important, that gives people a social reason to feel okay that I'm saying no to them, not saying you're not important. It's saying I've got this other thing that's really important to me. And so that tends to work pretty well with entrepreneurs, but you have to be okay with it. Like if you have a team or if people manage your schedule for you, like I had to explain this to we have 3 executive assistants that manage Layla and I's calendars. And I was like, if you put a meeting in the morning at like 10 a.m., I was like, you've killed my whole morning. It's shot. Like I can't get into any kind of deep work. And then I'm going to have 2 hours and I'm going to have lunch again. And then I'm going to have other stuff out. Like, no, like we don't do that. If they are going to do something and it's quote very urgent and they have a very strong argument, then I put it at the very end of my day and I book from the back forwards. And so that means that if I say I want to end my day at 5 or whatever, then it means they're going to put my first meeting of the day at 4 o'clock. So from 4 to 5, if it's an hour long meeting. And if I have a second meeting that day, then it's going to be from 3 to 4. And so I still get my whole day until 3 o'clock uninterrupted so I can work on the things that matter most. And we have just learned, Layla and I working together, that basically the more she takes off my calendar, the more money we make. And that's because that's where I'm most effective. Now, the flip side is Layla is such an exceptional operator and leader that her form of productivity is an absolutely stacked day so that she can delegate, invest in the team, prioritize resources, deal with small decisions that have to move the ball forward, check in on projects, hold people accountable, reward them for the behaviors they've done, like interview new candidates that we need to bring into the company. Like that's a super time consuming thing that's very, very high leverage and very high value. Like think about it. If you have to take 20 interviews to find the right person who can then take an entire 20 hours a week off your plate, I mean, geez, you spend 20 hours once to get 20 hours a week for life. What a great return. And this is why entrepreneurship at the highest levels, I'm going to go on a side rant here, but I think it'll be important. Entrepreneurship at the highest levels is always hiring ahead of where you're at. And for people who don't like their current business, I can promise you that if you grow it enough, you're just going to be dealing with people. All businesses at the top are, you got a marketing person, you got a salesperson, you got a product person, you got finance, you got legal, you got tech, and that's the business. And so whether you're selling widgets, you're selling services, you're selling software, fundamentally, you're just going to have a bunch of people that are executing those things. And so at the very highest levels, business is all the same. And you have to learn how to play business at that level to keep playing at that level.